You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players. And all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Welcome back to episode 128 of Arsenal Pass. As always, Hayden Dale here with Brendan Patrick. Brendan, got to ask you a question. We're heading to metrics for Bright Lights. We're getting very close to release. Preview weekend this weekend, which we're going to talk about on the pod. But if you could choose where we go next in the Flesh and Blood storyline, where are we going after metrics?
Interesting. Yeah, as an actual location, probably the monastery. I don't know. I think it would be the
back.
Yeah, back.
We're going back.
Yeah, back. I mean, I think that's thematically is the coolest place for me. It's the one I enjoy the most. I would say Volcor because of Kano, but outside of Kano, nothing really excites me too much there, to be honest.
Kasai?
So, yeah, Kasai, exactly. Yeah, so probably to the monastery. What about you, Hayden? Where would you go? Savage Lands? Try to get
Savage Lands.
Get a little.
Yeah,
you need a little ranger treatment on your brute, huh?
No, do you know what? I'd love to see Savage Lands. We go Brute, we go Runeblade, we go more of this kind of like more maybe like the mythical side of Savage Lands, like the kind of like a little bit darker, yeah, sure, but a little bit more mythical as well. So
I'll tell you, Hayden. I think there's a lot of credence to being sort of a bitchy Kano player in Flesh and Blood these days, but
there's a few of them.
Man, Rhinar and Brute gets it way worse, to be honest. That class has actually been getting the shorter end of the stick than I think than even Kano has. I mean, can't say Wizard because, Icelander is, I mean, it's that's Legend Story's baby at this point. Icelander's getting all the good stuff. But yeah, man, Brute took a turn that I think that both you and I didn't expect it to take. Looking at sort of the genesis of the class and the original the design philosophy around it, there was one aspect of the class design that we didn't like, and that seems to be the side that was emphasized and sort of they doubled down on, which was the variance aspect and the rolling of the dice and things like that. What do you think?
Yeah,
as a player.
Do you know what? I think with the potential for Lexi, and we're going to talk ban and suspended in a moment, and the impacts this might have for the end of the year post Bright Lights. Very interesting announcement, but I think there's a world where Brute becomes very, very good in the next 12 months. But we can we can digress on that one. But basically, I just think if the format's going to slow down, like there is a potential for Brute. Like, what are Brute's worst matchups, right? Like it's Runeblades and Ninjas, and maybe Fire is going to be one of the best decks heading into the kind of the future meta in the next 12 months. But maybe it's not, and maybe a deck like Rhinar or Olivia has a place in the meta. So,
do you even enjoy playing Rhinar anymore?
I haven't in the previous few metas because of just the kind of way I think you've had to play it to have any success. But yeah, I still, if I could play it in the ways I want to play it, more slow, more methodical, more setup based, get play some more interesting cards, then yeah, I think it's a deck. A card like Dig Up Dinner, for instance, is like quite interesting, right? Like that card is a very interesting card that we've had recently. So, is there ways to play that for more effect in this kind of slower kind of build Rhinar? But yeah. Anyway, episode 128 of Arsenal Pass, Brendan, we're going to talk about no changes. Well, kind of no changes. We've had a Living Legend and we've had a banned to a suspended change. But for Classic Constructed, there is no additional bans or suspensions on cards as we head into the Bright Lights meta, which we will talk about. Actually, I mean, we can Flesh and Blood. Anything you want to talk about, or should we just get straight into kind of the news and what's happening?
No, I mean, Flesh and Blood, this is like the perfect time to take breaks. If you want to take breaks in Fab.
This is off-season.
Yes, this is off-season. So I've honestly been loving Lorcana. That game is really impressing me at this point. It captures the essence of what is Magic, takes out the annoying parts, but also adds the sort of depth and complexity, at least in terms of a skill expression that I think you get in Flesh and Blood. Like, it's super interesting because they put in, it's very easy to understand and play the game, but the systems that they've implemented in the game are so technical and so punishing. So I only say this to try to sort of empathize and attract more Fab players because they can be a bit spiky. Not as like I'm not preaching this as a good aspect of the game, but you can absolutely run circles around your opponents and it feels super good in a game where you get to play with permanents and kind of get to express that side of maybe I don't know, your TCG desires that you don't get as much in Fab. It's, I don't know, it's just been a really solid constructed game. I'm impressed with it, enjoying it, etc. Outside of that, I have the Grand Archive tournament, basically like a calling coming up in 2 weeks, which I didn't know about actually until last night. And yeah, I mean, me and Caleb, Majin Bay need to start testing. I guess we're going down to Houston to go compete in that tournament, which should be interesting. Apparently, their tournaments are kind of a shit show at this point. We talked about it, reminiscent of early Flesh and Blood days with the 15 to 16-hour tournaments and the sort of weird ruling scenarios that are going on, etc. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm kind of interested in playing some Lorcana, Brendan. How can I get my hands on some cards and play some of that game?
You can't. Yeah, that's it. So
brilliant.
They have an online emulator. It's created by a guy, I think that, you know, believe he came from Fab. I recognize his name, but basically they have an emulator for the game that you can play online. It's called Pixelborn, and it's unbelievably unfathomably well done. Like, it's a great in-game client. It's built in Unity, but I mean, it has like a leaderboard, there's ranked, a deck builder, etc. It's fantastic. So if you want to play the game, you can totally play the game. If you want to pick up
a cardboard, I want to play in cardboard. I love to play my games in cardboard.
It will cost about the thing is it will actually cost about as much as a Flesh and Blood deck, probably less. But the difference is that I promise you, or at least I hope to God, the prices should go they should tank. So it's a terrible investment, but technically you could play in cardboard for a similar price you would in Flesh and Blood. If you look at your card game pieces as a financial investment, I don't recommend investing in Disney Lorcana.
Yeah. Well, they actually came up. I saw some Twitter threads coming up on Lorcana, Flesh and Blood. These things that always come up time and time again. And then I looked at my folder and I just looked at these cards that I've still been playing for the past 4 years. My tunic that I got, when I first started playing Flesh and Blood, that I'm still using, all these things. So sometimes I really reflect on kind of the early, how Flesh and Blood has used the system. And we're going to talk about rotation, actually, Brendan, your favorite topic in Flesh and Blood, and the kind of banner suspended announcement, because there has been an announcement about basically, I guess, more heroes entering
more
Flesh and Blood.
rotation, yeah. Which I think is important in Flesh and Blood. The sameness that we've gotten in the past few formats, few sets, could potentially be mitigated by a faster Living Legend system. Living Legend, unequivocally has been the biggest shakeup to the game and to the meta, and has led to the most refreshing, new class constructed metas in all of Flesh and Blood's history. It has not been new sets. It has been the Living Legend system, I think, in aggregate. I mean, maybe Tales of Arms and stuff like that in aggregate.
Uprising.
So it looks
pretty impactful, I think. But
yeah, looks like they're going to double down on the system, which is good, and it also potentially allows us to have another format in the Living Legend format as well, which would be cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my week in Flesh and Blood. This is kind of this is my couple of weeks. I'm definitely taking off Flesh and Blood a bit quieter. Definitely have made a bit of content. Still been playing a few games, which has been great, but kind of not really focusing too much. Preview weekend this weekend as the pod drops, so super excited about that, to see Bright Lights. I just can't wait to honestly play Limited with Bright Lights, but then I do have Calling Taipei coming up literally the weekend after release. So it's release weekend, and then Taipei is the weekend after, which I'm going to. So, would love to play something new. We talked about it on the pod with Sam last week. Would love to play something new, and I have my eyes on something. We are going to talk about the previews so far. There's a particular hero that I have my eye on, but I don't know if we're going to get an adult version of that hero. It doesn't look like it. So, but we can talk about that. Anyway, first up on the news, got to say a fond farewell to Briar, Brendan. It's been a bit of a love-hate relationship with Briar, myself personally. Mostly I loved playing Lightning Briar, and I hated playing anything else.
I like playing Tall Briar related, even though it sucked. It was fun.
Oh yeah. Earth Briar. Yeah. So Briar hits Living Legend officially and is gone. So if you're heading to your armories this weekend, and you are playing Class Constructed, you won't be playing with Briar. But it's been an interesting journey for Briar, getting stuck on that 998 or 999, whatever it was, Living Legend points. Super interesting. And then obviously really falling off in the meta. And then, effectively living on with like a cat with 9 lives for like 6 months, right? Like, it was kind of crazy. But not really having much of an impact in the format until, Charles and the team that he worked with for US Nationals playing this Fatigue Briar, also winning a couple other Nationals as well.
Yeah. Very cool to see the innovative list. Completely outside of that, because I applaud Charles and his team and the people that played that version of Briar and bringing a new take on the deck. Briar, for me, definitely overstayed her welcome. There was a honeymoon phase. I really liked the deck. It was a fun deck to be at the top. And then pretty much Pro Tour Allele was the inflection point where I stopped liking it so much because Briar is just not a super fun hero to play, in my opinion, because of how much variance is hinged on Channel Mod Heroic, and it feels not great to me. Maybe I'm just maybe I just don't like those type of decks, but that aspect of Briar is not fun to me. Also, Briar's just crazy with the fridge that Briar has is ridiculous. I think it's like a part of Briar that's not talked about enough. We focus on the Channel Mod Heroics and the embodiment tokens, all these flashy things, but Briar being able to chuck as much armor as it can in front of certain attacks and be able to pivot off of that is just that. It led to some pain points for me. Strong hero.
I think it just kind of pales in comparison to when you used to be able to block with a non-attack action for 7. I'll cover up your full attack for 7.
It's funny that there was this. It's always funny looking at in retrospective at Flesh and Blood metas and discussions that have been around him, because it's happened multiple times where you've had these obscenely broken, powerful heroes. And if I transport myself back to that time, there was definitely people that were having conversations about that. It's not that good. It's not the best hero. And it's like, we can't even fathom being able to do that stuff anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Ultim won. So I think just a little look back in history on Briar, right? Briar is one of the heroes that's been innovated with the most, actually, which is really interesting. It was this hero that kind of had a breakout at sort of nationals weekends in 2020, right? The 2020 national season. And we saw when in multiple countries with this Lightning Briar that kind of broke out. And then actually the weekend of US nationals where it became known, Michael Hampton won his first calling, playing Ultim, kind of to counter that Lightning Briar deck. And then actually as the season went on, pretty quickly, there was an errata change to Briar. And then, we saw decks like Viserai, we saw Ultim really cement itself in the format once people had worked out how to play Ultim. But then after that errata change, Briar kind of came up and down, right? And then it became this Channel Mod Heroic deck as opposed to this kind of just insane, aggro go wide damage deck. Or Lightning, of course. That's a card that most people in Flesh and Blood, I would say actually most players in Flesh and Blood have never played with Ball Lightning because of when that card came out and when that card was banned. So that's super interesting.
It's a funky card. I actually love the history of Briar. So it was Lightning Briar originally debuted at the Calling Cincinnati at the Pro Tour Invite event via Chris Higashi. It was then played by Matthew Fox at UK Nationals, where he won with it on stream, and it became extremely popular. Tarek was apparently a part of the deck building process there, brought it to US Nationals, eventually won that tournament, but by that time the deck was relatively popular because it had been displayed on stream. It was popular at US Nationals proper, but in the calling that happened the day after day one of US Nationals, it was obscenely popular because people were actually deck swapping because it was so powerful. And actually, you talk about that weekend is particularly interesting because, you can talk about US Nationals and Lightning Briar, etc., but the most interesting things that happened to me were both not US players and not in US Nationals. So Michael Hamilton wins his first calling on Oldhim and has a deck reminiscent of what becomes one of the best decks we've ever seen in Flesh and Blood. He created close to modern Oldhim back then, but also Matt Rogers takes that Viserai deck to top 8, and that Viserai deck ended up, sort of butting into the meta after that, and that was combo Scalata Viserai with sort of these general sort of mid-rangey value turns in between, which became me and you, Hayden and I's favorite deck. That was I remember we went through the testing process, a lot of testing after that event, and I remember trying to find a way to tweak Matt's deck and make it better. And I remember there being a bit of an agonizing process because the list was really good. I have to give him props for that. It was a solid list, but we saw so many critical things happen in the Classic Constructed history, at that weekend.
Yeah. I mean, and that same format, that ended up being the same format for the Nationals one that I had playing a Viserai list that, very similar. I think in the end, 10 cards different that me and Dan both played at our Nationals, which was a postponed Nationals because of, all COVID related things. But yeah, it was super powerful. And Briar was still making 7 embodiments and still, having ball lightnings in the deck at that point, which was interesting.
And Chain, and not to hark on this too much, but Chain had recently seen a banning of Seeds of Agony actually prior to that tournament, and a lot of people were approaching that first US Nationals with like, Chain is clearly is probably a strong word, but Chain seems to be still a very powerful aggro deck, but has it lost too much equity into the fatigue match? Still floated around in the form of Prism, even things like, just regular decks that block 3 cards like Dorinthia, Rhinar, they could fatigue you. And that was the big concern. Then you saw Michael Fang and the Hyperloops, they actually brought the Chain deck to that first US Nationals tournament and saw very good performances with it. So yeah, coming off the back of the previous Chain deck, which was, the Necropotent your whole deck, like 99% into fatigue and just like the best deck ever in Flesh and Blood.
Very true. All right, little short history there. Moving on, preview weekend is here. As this pod drops, we are entering the preview weekend. These new preview weekends, the condensed sort of version. We have these kind of lead-ins. We've seen all of these expansion slots, which has been very interesting. And now we're going to see the set. We're going to see the mech cards. We're going to see the cards we're going to be playing in limited. We're going to see some of the cards that you're going to be trying to put in your dash decks, your max decks, your Teklo Foundry decks. So it's going to be very interesting. Our card is dropping on Twitter, on the Arsenal Pass Twitter on Friday evening US time. Don't know the exact time. I think it's around around 8 p.m. Central, I believe. So make sure you check that out. It's a very interesting card, Brendan. It is. I don't know what I can say about this. Like, I was surprised to see the card type of this. It's definitely left me scratching my head a little bit. So yeah, interested to see what people think when we drop this card. And also interested to see what other people have that can potentially interact with this card, because it has very interesting interactions, I would say.
Definitely an interesting possessive pronoun you use to describe that card as well. Should we just tell people so that we don't leave them in the dark?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, so the meme, Hayden got a spoiler card. I did not. I actually did not get a spoiler card this season. So that's why I'm making fun of him saying our spoiler card.
Hey, what's mine is yours, my friend. Maybe they just left you off the email. But anyway, that's on the Arsenal Pass Twitter. Friday evening, Saturday morning, Australia, New Zealand time, if you're in my neck of the woods. We have some new videos up on YouTube. If you haven't checked those out already, they've come out with the past couple of weeks. There's a Kano Dick Tech. There is a Dromai vs. Dromai mirror, calling it Masterclass series. Let us know what you think of these series. I want to do more of these if you like them, so check them out. In-depth review of kind of playing that Dromai mirror matchup, which is my favorite matchup in current Flesh and Blood. So I really enjoyed that. We have a giveaway, Brendan, actually. We have something to give away. We have entry to, or tickets, golden tickets as they're called, whatever they've been called now, these packages to the Calling Taipei. If you do want to get those will be, all you have to do is go onto Twitter to find those. So we'll be dropping those on Twitter. Again, this by the time this pod drops, the giveaway will be up and it'll be closing on the Saturday US time and being given away on by the Sunday. So if you do want to get in and if you're heading to Taipei, if you're in that neck of the woods, or if you've already signed up but you want to get your recoup your costs, whatever it is, you can go and enter that giveaway for Calling Taipei. Again, I will be at Calling Taipei. Super excited. Wish Brendan was coming. Brendan, you got to come to an APAC calling at some point. We will get you over here.
Honestly, I could. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I don't know if I told you about this, but my flight to Barcelona for Worlds was.
It's going via Alaska.
Frustratingly cheap, actually, and we'll talk about why it's frustrating in the future. But it was like $600. Usually it's like $2,000. What? Yeah, I know. So I'm wondering if that extends to the rest of the world, because if those are the prices we're dealing with, I'll absolutely come down. Hayden, what does a golden ticket include? What is that?
Great question. Thank you for asking, because I definitely forgot to say what that is, right? So you do get full entry to Calling Taipei 2023. You get the Cold Foil Hero promo card, which I don't know if they've announced exactly what it is. It might be Teklo Foundry. I'm not sure if they've announced it yet. You get 3 of these side event coupons. You get the Fate for Scene, the Chinese Fate for Scene playmat, that beautiful Chinese Fate for Scene promo art playmat. And you get 3... the Banneret promo packs, basically, which they're giving away as well. So for all you Bolton mains out there, yeah, that's what you get with these golden tickets.
And one more time, how do people enter if they want to get that golden ticket?
Yeah, go hit us up on Twitter, and you'll see that. At the time of recording, we actually haven't put the giveaway up, but it will be there by the time this pod drops, and it will be closing in about 24 hours from this pod dropping. So make sure you go and get in if you're in that neck of the woods and you're planning on going to Taipei, like me. I've never been. I'm super excited, actually. I've never been to Taiwan before.
I've heard good things. Yeah, I went to boarding school. I don't know if I should tell the details of like whether it was disciplinary or not. Anyway, the people.
I was about to say this tracks.
Yeah, the people on my left and right in my dorm were actually from Taiwan for a couple of years there. So I've heard.
They play Flesh and Blood, or?
Nah, this was like 10 years. I mean, dude, I am old. I've heard good things. I've heard good things about Taiwan. Should be fun.
Awesome. All right, let's get on to it. Ban and suspended announcement. This has dropped. Now, LSS, dude, they've been doing us solid favors recently. This dropped more than 24 hours ago, so we've had time to, or about 24 hours ago, so have had time to digest this before we actually record, which is super friendly and nice of LSS. Do you remember the times where we'd record a pod, we'd submit the files, and then all of a sudden LSS would drop an announcement about 30 seconds after that?
Yeah, I actually didn't tell you about it, Hayden. I worked out a deal with Brian. Basically, no spoiler. In exchange, he drops it on Monday now.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I like that. I'm down with this.
Yep.
Okay, let's go through it quickly. So, as of this Friday, as we said, by now, once you hit Armories, you can no longer play Briar, Warden of Thorns, and Class Constructed. It has hit Living Legend, and that also means Rosetta Thorn goes along with it into retirement. Goodbye. Some will say good riddance. The other change as well is that Bullseye Braces moves from banned to suspended until Lexi Livewire becomes Living Legend. So once Lexi hits Living Legend, which looks like it's going to happen fairly soon, Bullseye Braces will come back into the fold for all the Azalea players and, for other, Riptide players, for instance, and potential future Rangers. And then LSS, that's it. So there's no bans, there's no suspensions for Lexi, for Icelander, for Tomultai, for anything that people might have been talking about in the kind of lead up to this ban and suspended announcement. There is no other changes. And LSS provide what I think is a pretty interesting, explanation on this ban announcement, Brendan. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of things that I want to call out, and then we can kind of discuss our thoughts on the announcement overall and kind of what this means for, I think, the next 3 months of play, but also then the future of Flesh and Blood as well, because there's some interesting stuff in here. So they address Lexi Livewire first, right? Obviously, a dominant performance of National Season, now very close to Living Legend. And LSS's kind of view on this is, simply put, something always has to be the best deck, and they feel that Lexi is one of the healthiest best decks we've had in Flesh and Blood. There's variance involved, they say. There's still really, really big turns, powerful turns, consistency to a degree, which they talk about. So they talk about basically the reason for no Living Legend is really around kind of Lexi being the best deck and them wanting to be a best deck and feeling that Lexi is a healthy best deck. And then they point out something which is, I think, I'm going to say for a lot of players heading to the World Championships are going to really appreciate this. I know I certainly did. They say the critical question, when will the Living Legend check occur? And they say the next ban suspended announcement will be Monday, November 6th, which means that's 11 days before the start of the World Championships.
Yes.
And they also say in this announcement that the barring anything catastrophic, this is a Living Legend check. This is not a ban suspended announcement for Classic Constructed at this coming time when we get to November 6th. Now, I mean, they're not promising that there will be no ban suspended changes.
They specifically did not promise, and they've got quite a trigger finger over there when it comes to trying to shake up the meta right before a big tournament. So
very true, but yeah. They do say very clearly that the purposes is a Living Legend housekeeping when it comes to Classic Constructed format, which could impact, of course, Lexi. Very likely this looks like, Lexi is going to Living Legend in this ProQuest season. It would be, especially with no changes, it looks very unlikely that it would stick around. But the big question is going to be Icelander, right? Will Icelander stick around? Will it survive this ProQuest season? Or will Icelander follow Lexi Briar-like into retirement as we head into the World Championships? Because obviously that would be a massive shake-up for the World Championships. So that's what they've said about that. I'll just quickly go through the last things and then let's talk about this announcement. Blitz, no changes. They feel good about the Blitz format and the new changes to Blitz with the inventory format, or the format that now involves inventory changes. They are increasing Living Legend points, and this is another thing that I think is very interesting. I guess they point out that product development has matured significantly over their four years so far, and I guess with the release of new heroes coming into the roster over the next 12 months in particular, they want to have a wider dispersion of Living Legend points basically, and they've increased it. So now it's 4 as opposed to 2 points per win for things like ProQuest or Internationals PTI events. So that's very interesting, I think, and that means obviously more rotation, more heroes. And then there's some Ultimate Pitfire and Commoner deck construction changes, which I would encourage you to go check out, but they're basically just solidifying what this is. 1 young hero card, 52 card pool, So you now have the inventory like you do with Blitz, and you start with exactly 40 cards and up to 2 copies of each card, of course. And then, yes, Monday, November 6th, 2023 is the next ban and suspended. Apparently just Living Legend housekeeping announcement, but Brendan, thoughts overall?
Oh, you forgot to mention I think the biggest part of the announcement, which is they said that they plan to have all of the sets moving forward be draftable sets.
Yes.
That's got that's got to excite you. I mean, I believe that it wasn't worded exactly like that. I'm paraphrasing, but that was part of the the maturing and development is that moving forward, they will be limited sets. It looks like last time.
Yes, I was trying to find the exact wording in this because that was something. I'm just going back to it now. Yes, here we go. So we're happy to confirm that almost all of our sets, almost, not all, but almost all of our sets going forward will offer the limited format gameplay. Yeah, and that is super exciting. And that's, I guess, the introduction of new heroes, right? They want to make sure with these limited formats, they're introducing new heroes. Obviously, we've seen old heroes come back in Outsiders in particular, but it does sound like, the Living Legend points increase is a big part of it is because limited is going to be so pivotal to sets coming in release for Flesh and Blood, which... if they've got the resources to make sure that they're able to balance these limited formats and accommodate testing all of these new heroes, that's phenomenal. I think that's I think my kind of view in the past. So I would say like if we take the last 24 months, right? In the first 12 months, the last 24 months, I felt like maybe we had a lot of kind of new heroes coming in, right? And it felt like there was a lot happening. And then the second 12 months, it felt a little bit stagnant, right? And I think this introduction of potentially just more new heroes and a bit faster rotation on Living Legend, I think that's a good thing. I want to see a bit more freshness.
Yeah, it's a great thing. Like, it's funny because you said, if they're able to test them, like maybe not, maybe fuck it, maybe they're just going to actually print more heroes, not have no testing, but maybe not have something be so rigorous to the extent that it's clogging up the design process and preventing them from making these sets limited sets. Like, I think that we're seeing a shift towards a more powerful game and then willing to take more risks. I mean, Brian's kind of, if you read between the lines in our interview with him, I felt like that's part of what he was saying is that they were willing to take more design risks with Flesh and Blood and stretch it a little bit more to make the game more exciting. And that's part of that is making the game rotate faster, adding in more heroes, etc. So I think even if we do have a hero here and there that's a bit busted, like it's worth it, and it will actually make the whole process a bit more fun. Because I like the eternal card game pitch of Flesh and Blood is like so romantic at the beginning, but the inherent flaws and baggage that come with it are something that need to be very precisely mitigated, in my opinion. And I think that we're seeing LSS start to do that because there is a lot that comes with that. I mean, we see where eternal card games have ended up in the past, and we've seen the baggage that Flesh and Blood has had to carry for the past 1 to 2 years, with having sets come out like Dynasty, that just did nothing, right? Like that's part of it. So I don't know. I really think that Brian and, there's more people to the team, of course. Brian just happens to be the spokesperson, the person that we interface with. Like they seem like they're going more towards this, not necessarily magic fire design, but at least an echo of that philosophy. And I'm all for it. I think I'm on the extreme end of the spectrum where I think that Flesh and Blood would be a better game, like an actual better game experience, not a better game financially for any of you that are holding on to cards, but a better game overall if there was also a rotating format. And I know I'm a minority there, but this adds more of the essence of that into our current game, with more heroes coming in, with faster Living Legend. So, 10 out of 10 for me.
I would agree with most of that to a degree. Yeah, I think more rotation, as I say, is something that I'm in favor of. But more limited formats is definitely something I'm in favor of. Like, I want 3 limited formats a year. Yeah. I want to play fresh limited formats every 4 months. Like, that is, 3 to 4 months. I want to be playing fresh limited formats.
Yeah, there is no downside to that. That is all upside, unless the burden of making a new set limited playable hurts the design of constructed. And if they, like Brian said in the article, which I believe was kind of what he's alluding to, maybe he said it verbatim, but looks like that they've sort of fixed that problem. And they have, they're able to create sets that can be balanced for limited and still create cards for constructed that they want to. And we don't have to go through this period of supplemental sets, which is like, supplemental sets are great. We talk about Crucible of War being one of our favorite sets. It's the original supplemental set. But when a supplemental set comes out and it doesn't hit, it sucks. I'm sorry, but it's a big dud in the game, and there's not a lot to do. There's not a limited format, and there's not a lot of new ways to interface with the game. So it's this balance of power that goes with that. But when you add the limited end, it is again all upside. It's good. So there may be some tertiary effects that happen after that, in terms of balance and things like that. But from a philosophical perspective or ideological, I guess it's yes, 2 thumbs up. Very good.
Yeah, I like supplemental sets, but I think Dusk to Dawn is one for me that is it's not a set I want to see again. I think the more I think about it, if they're going to do a narrower hero base, it needs to be limited playable for me. It needs to be limited focus so that you're giving something to almost everyone to a degree. I would like to see that, basically. So if they're going to do supplemental sets, I want to see it more in the vein of Crucible of War. I'll even say Everfest. I think Everfest was actually, potions aside, items aside, although maybe those would be relevant, quite a good set. So.
Yeah, I think it's relevant when thinking about Everset to appropriately weight how much of that set was pretty bad, right, with the items and stuff. But Everfest was great at shaking up the meta. I mean, it printed some really disruptive cards, and it was had some key playables. There was definitely winners and losers. Some big winners and big losers,
but it had a footprint. On the game.
It was a good set. Overall, in terms of how it impacted Class Constructed, which was the design thesis of a supplemental set back then, maybe not anymore moving forward. Everfest successful in terms of opening packs, and if you're plus EV, it was. I don't know. It was kind of rough to open a bunch of potions, which potions just from a modern Flesh and Blood and just the overall game design, they're just not that good. They have to be overwhelmingly powerful to be playable because of the nature of them being no blocks. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Deja vu. Stuff that card. All right. Let's go back to the top of and talk about basically no changes. Of course, Briar leaves, but let's talk about no changes. What do you think of this decision by LSS to say, you know what, we feel like the format's in a healthy position, and we're going to let Living Legend take care of Lexi and Icelander here?
Yeah, it seems like a decision that would make some people happy and really piss off some other people, which I think you've seen a little bit of that on Twitter. It's hard to get the general sentiment of this announcement via Twitter because you do have some voices that are louder than others that might not be representing the population as a whole. What are my thoughts? Honestly, I think that the reasoning that Brian gave is solid, but Brian has a way with words, and most of the things that Brian says sound solid. They do. They sound solid. Basically, the idea behind it is that there's always going to be a best deck, and we talked about this already a little bit. And Lexi is a best deck. It is the best deck, but it is a healthy version of what a best deck could be in Flesh and Blood. It has variance aspects. It's not overwhelmingly powerful. I haven't looked
has
deep.
Bad matchups.
Yeah, I haven't looked deep into the statistics, so I can't. I'm not quantitatively backing that up. But based off what they said, the ideology behind the decision is solid. What about you, Hayden? Because you were talking about Tumultine and shit.
Well, that was a Nick Bush's special actually, but I don't disagree with him on that one. That card's just kind of unfun, honestly. The more I've played Dromine, the more I've turned one Tumultide, my Lexi or Ninja opponents into non-games is actually not particularly interesting. But I think the biggest takeaway for me, I think, and I want to talk about this, I think there's two sides to this. There's the competitive, hyper competitive, there's the almost the professional player, right, aspect, and we can talk about what that means in a second. And the ability to set out events, I think, gives you a kind of privileged position. And then there's the armory through ProQuest player, and we're going to talk about the ProQuest season impact as well, because I think that is a large impact to ProQuest, or lack thereof, actually. But the outlier, right, the one that's kind of the spanner in the works potentially is, what does Bright Lights mean? We don't know, right? So they make this decision, and on the surface, we don't have any information about Bright Lights other than the few cards we've seen so far, but we don't know exactly what the impact to the meta is going to be. So my kind of view is that if you're sat there as someone like myself who, majority of the events you play, honestly, the majority of the events I play are going to be callings, pro tours, things like this, right? But okay, so for me in that situation, I think this is a great announcement. I think this means that we're going to have some clarity in the lead up to Worlds. It's going to be really clear if Lexi's going to. I mean, I'm just going to. Lexi's going to Living Legend. Like I will stake on this, right? Like so, I know for Worlds that we're going to have a check 11 days before. Lexi's going to hit Living Legend. I'm going to have some inclination of where Iceland is going to sit in terms of the Living Legend, and we're going to have this brand new format for Worlds, effectively, which I think is super exciting, right? With potentially 2 heroes, but almost certainly 1 hero Living Legend and Bright Lights impact. So there's going to be changes, right? That feels great to me. And I'm going to know, I'm going to be able to see it. I'm going to see it coming. And there's probably going to be no other bans, as Alice is saying, in the lead up to that. That feels really good for me. I feel like that puts me in a good spot. On the flip side of that, if I'm sitting there going, great, ProQuest season's coming up. I'm about to travel to, I don't know, a calling in Dallas, and I've got 6 ProQuests I'm going to play, for instance, sitting there in North America. All of a sudden, no changes. I now have to go through a ProQuest season in the exact same meta we just played, potentially, because I don't know anything about Bright Lights yet. And I've got to, continue to contend with Lexi, which I don't find enjoyable to either play or play against, for example. That leaves maybe potentially a bad taste in the mouth, right? Like, do I even want to be playing this season? I think those are the 2 sides of it, right? And then the thing that I guess is that piece we can't really say right now is, what does Bright Lights do to this? Like, I'm hoping that LSS would, if they felt that Bright Lights was going to make no impact to a format that has Lexi and Icelander as like maybe the 2 best decks, or 2 of the best decks, that they would make a change to allow Bright Lights to at least have some impact, with probably still Lexi being very good, but maybe a slight nerf, for instance. Leaves me thinking that LSS feel that Bright Lights is going to have some sort of immediate impact, whether that's from the core mechanics of Mechanologist, or whether that's from what we're going to see with the expansion slots. That's kind of my feeling on it. But those are the 3 kind of things I'm looking at when it comes to this announcement.
Yeah, I wonder if the 2 ways of interpreting it are somewhat split between the hyper-competitive player that is playing Tier 3 to Tier 4 events and the casual player, because I would venture to say, or if I was to put myself in the shoes of someone who went to an armory every single week and was looking at this ProQuest season, I think that this announcement, if you dislike Lexi, which seems to be a pretty common sentiment among most players, I mean, it would be it would be disappointing, right? Because I think that even if the announcement, it's a good announcement, it all makes sense, it is still a little boring. I think inherently, like you were expecting something to happen. You're finally, I don't have to play against this deck anymore. And it's like, yep, nope. You're going to get shit on a little bit more from Lexi, and it will inherently rotate itself out. So yeah, unfortunately, we just live in we are in a bit of an echo chamber, both on Twitter and the people that we play with and hang out with, of the people that play the Tier 3 to Tier 4 events. So I would, if you're listening to this and you are a person that plays armories and is looking to play ProQuest, and you do play against Lexi and you do hate Lexi, or maybe you love Lexi and you want to keep playing it, let us know your thoughts on the announcement, because I think Twitter gets sort of drowned out by the personalities or whatever, the
big voices,
etc. So, yeah, my biggest critique is that maybe the announcement's a bit boring and frustrating for people that were hoping that the best deck would be sort of neutered in some way, I guess.
Yeah, but safe and boring can often be just a good way to go, right? If you want to call it boring. I'm not even going to necessarily say it's boring, personally. I think, you talked about, I guess, hyper-competitive professional player versus casual player. It's not even just that. There's also this massive middle ground. There's the grinder. There's the player who wants to be semi-competitive. There's the player who's aspiring to get to the Pro Tour, for instance. There's a massive group of players that are potentially affected by this, and a lot of them, I'm not saying all, but a lot of them will feel, you know what, I like playing Lexi. I want to play Lexi. I'm glad I'm going to get to play my Lexi deck for the next 3 months of this ProQuest season. Others will feel complete opposite, right? Like we just talked about. So I think it's hard to win in this situation if you're sat there as LSS trying to balance the game. I think the view they've taken, right, is they have a clear pathway to what the post Bright Lights season, well, not even post the Bright Lights, but post, I guess, this ProQuest season will look like, which is a world without Lexi, and potentially a world without Icelander. And I think that opens up just future design space without having to potentially continue to manage these heroes in the format. So I think they've taken the route that makes the most sense to them, even if it does mean maybe slightly more short-term pain than they might have liked to have had. But if I compare this to other formats previously, I think this is a good announcement. First of all, I think it just is statistically true. If you look at this national season, it's been one of the most diverse diverse seasons we've ever had in Flesh and Blood. When you look at the decks that have performed, the decks that have won, top 8 representation, meta representation, like this is one of the meta representation is actually a little bit lower. Lexi has been very dominant in the meta, but win percentage, top 8 percentage, this has been more diverse than almost any other meta we've seen except for early metas. So, I think that's a big part of it as well. It's like there are a lot of options in this meta, and a lot, Kano won 2 nationals, right? Or won 2 nationals, or won a nationals and came second in nationals. Like, things like this. Dromai won nationals. Yes, Elixir won nationals. But, we had, when you look at the data, actually, I don't have it on hand, but like Dromai had like a really good season this national season, and there's a deck that's not even talked about that much. Icelander's there. There's all these other things that play into it. So, and that, again, bright lights, we haven't even seen the impact of bright lights yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the data, or at least like the meta representation aspect and the playability of not Lexi, not tier 1 decks is very apparent. I reminisce of the US Nationals weekend where I did have more than one, and I would say quite a few players come up to me and complain about the current meta that they were participating in. Maybe they were just salty losers because they had just lost, a match or something. But there was a giant projector screen behind me that was projecting the meta of the tournament, and it was ridiculous. Like, it was super healthy. There was obviously Lexi's best deck, but there was like a solid top 3, top 4, even top 5 decks. And like you said, we have these outlier decks like Kano, being able to win tournaments. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard to figure out where the angst comes from.Maybe it's just players getting a bit jaded as they play the game for 2 to 3 years or whatever. But yeah, people just seem to complain despite the data the data tells a story that the meta's in a great place, or in a good place.
People are always welcome to have those complaints, right? And I mean, you're never going to have 100% of people say, wow, perfect meta. Like, it's just not going to happen. People always have their favorites. They have ways to play the game.
Welcome to Wraith, baby. Perfect.
You're not even going to get to 80%. Like, you're never going to get to 80% of people saying, like, feel good about the meta. Like, you're always going to have those people complaining. It's going to be different people each time because of the way, some people might enjoy it at one time and then they're not going to enjoy the meta as much, and then that's going to ebb and flow, right? And that's just games. Like, I've never played a game or seen a game where it's just everyone's been like, yeah, great meta, feels great, feels so balanced. Everyone's going to always have complaints. And in Flesh and Blood, as LSS and have pointed out in this announcement, there is always going to be a best deck in their eyes. That is just healthy for the game. We've talked about this at length on podcasts before about the health of like a best deck in a format, and something to have a target on its back for the health of evolving metas. But anyway, that's the kind of situation, right? I want to ask you one more question, and I guess coming as a player who is going to the World Championships and for players who are going to the World Championships, what do you think of this 11-day lead time for basically a new format? So November 6th, we're going to have a new format to some degree. Lexi's definitely going to be removed, but Icelander could also be removed. How does that kind of make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess more Flesh and Blood history here. So they did that at Pro Tour number 1, but they didn't do it. It was different than this. Quite different. Totally different narrative, totally different tone. But basically they were like, hey, we're going to shake things up for our enjoyment and the enjoyment of the streamer. Who knows? Because that was like...
They announced it 11 days before. Don't worry about like...
Yeah, all of the players were like, why the fuck would you do this? Like, not super happy about it. And they did that, and they really shook up the meta, and it was some big changes, and it definitely makes preparing for the tournament, in my opinion, less interesting most of the time, because sometimes it opens up a little window where you can do something crazy. But the thing about these 11 days, it's just not a lot of time, and you actually give a lot of advantages to certain players, and you actually hurt a group of players that you probably don't want to be hurting, which is the players that are not connected to teams, they don't have these big testing groups, they have less time off work, etc. So like, it overwhelmingly benefits players that are, they have like, financial backing to be able to travel to these events. They're in big teams and big testing teams, things like the Wolf Pack, and they're on the cutting edge. It's just like, it's such a win more scenario, where sort of like the people at the top just eat when there's this very short notice, because it punishes the average player so much, in my opinion, most of the time. So what do I think going into the World Championships?
Well, hold up, I can say that because I would agree with you if that was the case, but that isn't the case. That isn't what's happening here. Like
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah, I've seen this narrative on Twitter, right? It's like people saying, "Oh, 11 days is not enough time." You don't have 11 days. You have, what are we now? We have 60 days to work out. You have two potential metas. You have a meta where Icelander is there, and you have a meta when Icelander isn't there. And you got 60 days to work on that.
Yes. So what I was going to say is that in the past, the past example was not what Brian said in this article. It was like they decided to just shake everything up, and they wanted to make a bunch of changes. And the article specifically says that they don't want to do that. They want it to be a Living Legend, a Living Legend update. So because of that, you can prepare for two metas. The issue is just like when you get into that 11-day thing, and there is going to be cards that might be banned or might not be banned, you end up testing for like 3, 4, 5 metas, and you have to figure out which ones are just going to be the most probable. In this case, it should be pretty clear. But they reserve the right, and they reserve the right to make changes outside of that. So
of course, like, and I would hope that the reason they would pull the trigger on that is like the format just looks so unhealthy. Like Bright Lights releases and there's just like a broken Teklo deck or something, and they're like, okay, we have to pull the trigger on this, because even after Lexi goes, the shake up with Living Legend is actually going to make it worse, not better. For instance,
I honestly don't even. If there was a broken Teklo deck or a broken Dash deck, I would hope that they would actually. Well, I mean, it depends on like how broken and how much it's dominating part of that. But I really don't like if they would ban something like that, right before like a best deck that came out in the new set. Maybe it's appropriate to have a diverse meta if it was obscenely broken, but yeah. I mean,
that's the example I'm giving. It's you go through a format where Lexi and Icelander are there, and there's a deck that's just so dominant that it's just, it's not enjoyable, because this is going to be a new format. Like when we get to Worlds, the November 6th announcement is going to almost certainly Living Legend Lexi out of here, and then you're going to have a format that has no Lexi. Like that is a very different format, because Lexi is still what it seems like going to be the best deck in this ProQuest season. So you're taking the best deck out of the format, but you're giving people about 60 days notice of it to start testing and working on that. But you're going to see I think this is honestly, like, this is such a win. I think this is the best of both worlds. You can have a completely new format for the best players in the world to work out and showcase on camera 11 days after the changes, but you're also giving them the time and upfront information to be able to like work on this, regardless if you're in a team. Like I'm not in a big team, and I think this is a good thing for all play, for the game, basically. Like I'm not what you just spoke about, right? Well, like I'm actually going to be sat in Europe a week before working, and I actually won't be testing in the 7 days leading up to 2 Worlds.
So the team advantage is definitely the previous example, and not what is supposed to be happening in this upcoming. But if they decide to change their minds and they do what they did at Pro Tour number 1, then I would hold my stance that it just very much benefits a group of players that don't really need to benefit, and it can be quite punishing. But yeah, so I hope.
Sure. I'd agree with you then.
Yeah, I think we have a clear landing pad here, and hopefully they just stay true to it. Hopefully they don't have to do any additional big shakeups on top of that, because, I mean, let's just say it. Players preparing for the World Championship that are traveling, investing money, time, etc. into this, we would like to be able to predict the meta before 11 days, more than 11 days in advance. That is preferable. And this is a scenario where you can do that, or you can, reasonably account for, potentially Icelander being out of there either, which Brian even said in the article would be a mathematical miracle. So unlikely.
That's the one though. That's like the 2 versions of the format, one without Icelander and one with. So, all right. I mean, it's an interesting announcement. Like, honestly, okay, we always do this when they do ban and suspended announcements, Brendan. So grade them out of 10 on this announcement.
Interesting. Oh, you first.
I'm gonna.
Are you grading from your personal player opinion?
No. I gave you all the kind of sides of the things I'm thinking about. Right. I talked about the kind of the different player bases. I think I said 9. I'm gonna give them an 8. I think overall, I think they've done what they can with the current situation, and looking at Lexi, and I do agree with this idea of having a best deck, and that Lexi is. Although I personally don't enjoy playing Lexi, I do think it's one of the better best decks we've had for the health of the format. But also at the flip side, if I'm heading into ProQuest season and planning to play a bunch of ProQuest, I'm now less excited with this announcement. There's no, unless Bright Lights really shakes it up, which is kind of the caveat to that. That's a downer potentially for the next sort of, what are we about to enter it? So like 6 weeks, 7 weeks sort of time frame. But I think overall, just with the situation and what this means for the next formats and the go forward position, I'm gonna give it an 8. I love the announcement about limited, about the hero rotation, all of that.
So I'm
going to put it on the whole. 100%. It's a full announcement, right? So on the whole, I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay, well,
8 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an 8 or above if they're telling us that most, if not all, of the sets moving forward are going to be limited, because that's a big change. I mean, honestly, one of the biggest critiques of Flesh and Blood is the cadence of content released. It was pretty bad in the past, especially with the COVID delays or whatever happened back in Uprising. So yeah, I would welcome more limited formats. I think that it just adds such a better dynamic to casual play to the game, being able to engage with the game every single week. You don't always have to be preparing for some specific tournament. You can play limited and have a lot more fun, or at least that's how I like to enjoy the game. So I would give them an 8 at least, and I'll probably just stick at 8 because I'm just gonna copy you, I guess. It's just like the only thing is like I'm just really interested to hear what the sort of the player base that does attend weekly armories, that is, was looking forward to ProQuest, what they think of the announcement, because I think it's borderline objectively a good announcement for professional players in my mind. I know you're going to see people on Twitter's like really angry that our pro players are high level players, but I think that
I think they're wrong.
I think this is a good announcement for tier 3, tier 4 event players.
Yeah, I think it's a worse announcement for tier 2, as I say. But I think the future looks bright, and hopefully Bright Lights makes it even brighter. But we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the second half of the main topic, which is talking preview season. It is preview weekend. As we drop this pod, we're going to be about 12 hours from, or even less than that, from the time this pod drops. No, that's about right. 12 hours. Man, my math is bad. About 12 to 18 hours after this pod drops, we're fully into reveals. You're going to be seeing a lot of cards heading your way. But at this point in time, we've seen all of the expansion slots, Brendan, for Bright Lights, this new expansion slot in this set, the first time we're seeing it. And we've also seen hero reveals, and we've seen a few cards also previewed / spoiled because of things like armory promos and the like. So I don't know, where do you want to start?
Dash database. So I'll read it off. It's a mechanologist hero, young, 4 intellect, 18 life. It says you may look at the top card of your deck at any time. Once per turn, you may play a mechanologist item with cost 0 or 1 from the top of your deck as though it were an instant. It costs 1 additional resource to play. Is it confirmed that there's going to be an adult version of this, Hayden?
No.
Interesting.
So
should we assume?
Well, we know there's Dash IO, right? We've seen the Dash IO like hero kind of splashes and things like that. Whether like Prism in the previous set, is the same hero ability, so Dash IO and Dash Database, the young and old, because obviously they have to have different naming conventions because of there already being young Dash and an older Dash, right? So that could be the case, that we do get an older version of the exact Dash, but we could also, in theory, get a Dash IO that doesn't have this same hero text, right? So
can we just assume for conversation here, I guess? I feel like
you can do whatever you like. I will not assume.
Believe that this will be an adult hero. Yeah, I mean, this is the one that excites me the most. Not because it's immediately powerful, but because this is kind of what Kano does. I think that alternatively, like the best use case for Dash database is potentially in an aggressive Dash cell where you can now play non-mechanologist cards, and you can look at the top of your deck before you boost, so you don't have to, immediately lose the game if you maybe boost like your 1 Tome of Fyendal or other cards you could be adding into your deck. I think that might be the application this deck actually sees, but ultimately, what's exciting is something, some sort of play pattern where you're able to get these items to the bottom of your deck, or you're able to get enough value off of playing them effectively for, almost for free. You have to pay the additional resource throughout the game, and you can have some sort of combo deck here. I don't think those items exist yet, but they might exist. We have 200 plus mech cards coming out in the set. Looking at the top of your deck at any time, that has not been done before in Flesh and Blood. That's a very exciting thing to do. It's a lot more information than we've ever dealt with. So I see a lot of people getting excited about this. To be honest, on Twitter, it's definitely the most, like the biggest shakeup in terms of hero design I think we've had in a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you ever, you played a bit of Magic, but it reminds me of some of the things you could do in Magic, like now I'm
Future
forgetting the name of the
Sight?
card. Future Sight, yeah, Future Sight, exactly. This card.
I did not play Magic, but I know that card.
So yeah, it's a very interesting hero design. Obviously, offset it with the 18 life, potentially 36 if it's an adult with the same templating. I like it. How good I think this is going to be. I don't think it's necessarily like a hero that I'm super interested in, but I can see it being very interesting. What I would say is like a lot of the hero design recently is quite interesting, and it feels like there's a lot of. It's not clear cut how you should build them. I look at Vincent, I look at Prison, these sorts of heroes. Like it's not clear cut how you should build them, and it looks like there's more. There's more to be discovered with how you build these heroes and put them together, and I think that's an interesting way to Flesh and Blood to be going. Like that feels less on rails how you should build and play these heroes, right? Like if I look to previous heroes, like whether it be something like Fi or Starvo or whatever it is, like they felt a lot more on rails as to how you should build and play these decks. And some of the more recent heroes with their hero abilities, they feel more complex. Like if I was to give them a complexity rating, I would give this a much higher complexity rating than Fi's hero ability, for instance, right? Or even Icelanders to a degree. There's multiple lines of text on this, and I just think that's an interesting way to go. This is not the hero that I'm most interested about that we've seen so far for Bright Lights, but it is definitely interesting.
Yeah, this is definitely one I'm most excited about, but it's not the most powerful, at least apparently. Like you just talk about your little Max Nitro.
Well, I'm not even just saying that Max Nitro is the most powerful, but it's very interesting. So Max Nitro is a Mechanologist hero, young, for intellect, 20 health, and says once per turn action, 2 resources, create a Hyperdriver token with 2 steam counters on it. Activate this ability only if you've boosted this turn. And it says hyperdrivers you control get Crank. And Crank's keyword text is, as it enters the arena, you may remove a steam counter from it. If you do, gain an action point. So, and the hyperdriver token is just hyperdriver, but obviously as with Max, it comes into play with 2 resource counters on it. So it says when this has no steam counters on it, destroy it. And once per turn, when you boost a card, remove a steam counter from this and gain a resource. So I think what kind of interests me about this, first of all, I actually thought this hero was kind of broken when I first read it, and then I thought about it more and realized that actually it's definitely not broken. It's actually kind of balanced. I thought that like the hyperdriver also gave go again. Like I thought the token had go again, like the hyperdriver card, but it doesn't. The token doesn't have go again. So if you do activate the once per turn action with Max Nitro, then you don't get go again, but you can remove, you can crank it, right? You can remove a counter from the hyperdriver that you're creating, the hyperdriver token, to get an extra action point. So I guess kind of one of the first things that popped in my head is like, even at a base level, I could be pitching a blue, coming in with my zipper hit for 5, boosting, and then making a hyperdriver off the back of it for future turns, right? With 2 counters to set up some really big, like disgusting high octane turns. That's the first thing I thought about actually. But I think there's even more scope beyond that. But basically having a hero power that creates you this like mini Teklo core, right? Like gives you access to resources. Like cheating resources is really good for future turns, right? It's like it's almost like a mini energy potion that you're investing in, and that's super exciting to me. Well, I don't know, because it potentially also this looks like it might be only this doesn't look like we're getting
it does have 20 health.
It doesn't look like we're getting a adult hero, just from what I can see. And down the comments, correct me if people seem to be finding something else, but it looks like we're getting 2 adult heroes in this set, and that looks to be Teklo Foundry, which we've seen, and then Dash.io. So Max Nitro doesn't look like we're getting an adult version, which maybe that's fine. Like maybe it would be too strong for Classic Constructed, but it's a very interesting hero ability, I think, and I like this idea of being able to manipulate resources, but it might be too good. I don't know.
Yeah,
also could be bad. Who knows?
Nah.
You got to boost though. Remember, you do have to boost to do this, right? So there is additional cost. Like your deck is again still a resource with playing a hero like this, but it potentially just gives you a lot of flexibility to open up.
Reminds me of Viscera, to be honest.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Just so like you're doing normal boost mechy stuff. That's not a word.
And gaining some.
Yeah, and then you're setting up high octane turns, so you're creating these windows in which you're sort of popping off in between your standard the standard turns when you attack and you do X number of damage, whatever your median damage is, and then you're weaving in these big high octane turns.
Or maximum velocity turns.
Yeah. Sorry, that's actually the card that I meant to say was maximum velocity.
Okay.
But I would love to play this as an adult hero. It would kind of be a buzzkill if all the really cool hero design went to Blitz, because I'm sorry, I just don't care about that format yet.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that we're going to care about that format next year. Like, I hope. I actually think Blitz is a cool format, and I've enjoyed playing Blitz at times, but also at times I've hated playing Blitz. I would love to see them put the work into make that a relevant format for a calling level. Obviously we saw it at Worlds. I'm not necessarily thrilled about seeing it at Worlds, although I do like multiple formats at an event like Worlds. But yeah, calling level, for instance. Team, I want a team Blitz calling. That's what I really want, but I want a good format for it as well.
You already got one. All right, let's talk about...
I know, I want another one.
Speaking of Viscerai, Sonata Phantasmia. Runeblade action. Yep. Defense for 3, blue, XX cost, Viscerai specialization. Create X rune chant tokens. If X is 6 or greater, target hero discards 3 random cards. Is this card balanced?
This card's bad, right?
You said it was busted. I'm going to put you on blast. First thing you said in the group chat was this card's broken.
It was like, this is a blue that blocks 3 that creates rune chance and looks like it could be a finisher, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's a world where this card is kind of insane. Obviously, there's a world where this card is ridiculous and like completely broken. It's a world with Scalata, but there's also a world where potentially, like this could be good. But just think about it, right? Like if you want to get to the 6 or greater, that's going to require you to put in 12 resources to it, right? So that's going to require this in Arsenal and 4 blues in hand, for instance, right? And then what are you doing after that? You've made rune chance that you can potentially time walk them. That might be good enough. Like that's kind of where I see this card being at the moment, like that kind of value. But then I started to think about, I was like, what if you have like energy potions in play and then you like Ninth Blade and all this kind of stuff? And I think that's too gimmicky. It's not powerful enough. It's not good enough to set up. This card is more of I think this is potentially like quite good into like grindy matchups. You get to the late game, you have 5 blues, you play this, and then you can set up kind of like some finisher turns afterwards with a bunch of rune chance.
I think this is a great sideboard card. I might be reaping this statement in the future when it becomes maybe the most busted card. But as a sideboard card, like let's say if you went into like an OG sort of fatiguey olden deck, which they don't really exist anymore, but say it was Fatigue Briar, this is a great second cycle deck. I mean, you can absolutely pitch your blues together with this card and time walk them multiple times in a row and set up something like you said with that Ninth Blade. I think that this is, I like it as a sideboard card. It adds a lot of deck versatility to Viscerai. Unfortunately, what's stopping Viscerai from being playable is, it's not the fatigue matchups. It's everything else. Yes, everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can just play this card in the deck because it's a blue that blocks 3, but I do. It's going to have more impact in other matchups than... The cool thing about Viscerai actually is you have so many interesting blues now. You can actually, you could just have a 15-card sideboard that's just all different blues.
Yeah.
Like it's quite an interesting hero.
All right, you want to read off the next one?
Shot.
Yeah,
Intoxicating Shot. I know you want to talk about this.
I put it on there, so...
It's a ranger action arrow attack at Majestic. It costs 0. It's at blue. It's a Riptide specialization. Attacks for 4, defense for 3, and says when this hits a hero, they create a Courage and Quicken token.
Okay. Is this card good?
I mean, it's a very interesting card in terms of what it does, right? It's a blue that's a 0 for 4 that defends 3. I bet it's a Riptide specialization. And is this a card that Riptide wants? I don't know. Like, to me, I'm not a Riptide player, but when I look at this, I mean, actually, to be honest, who is a Riptide player, right? But when I look at this, I'm like, is this the kind of thing that Riptide really wants?
Is he going to push him over the edge? Is he finally going to break out?
Definitely not doing that, right? But it is a blue that blocks 3 and attacks for 4, and that is cool, at least. I will give it that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if this card is like actual power creep.
It is. 100% it is. It definitely is.
Yeah, like,
but it's tied to a specialization.
Straight up power creep, which I think that as a case study, that's the most interesting part. Is that this card is legitimately power crept in what is probably the worst hero in the game. Really does. Arachne and Riptide duking it out down there. Yeah, all right. Contest the Minefield. Wizard action aura. Majestic. 2 cost. Blue. Blocks for 2. Says all heroes get -1 intellect. At the start of your turn, destroy this. Yeah, so this is really what's going to bring Kano into tier 1 or S tier. Okay. It's going to be a menace of the deck. This card is unplayable in Kano. It's absolutely garbage. But how do you feel about this in Icelander?
It's a block 2 that costs 2. I don't know. That's
so you
fine,
play it on your opponent's on your opponent's turn. They drop 3 cards. So this is effectively... This seems...
But why didn't I just play a damage spell from my arsenal? Like, if my card from arsenal can be worth 3 damage, then it's probably worth the same as an extra card in the hand, right?
It's unconditional. I think that's the difference, So you can maybe set up windows if you need to.
It blocks 2.
Yeah, that's a fact.
You could set up windows for potential ice eternal combos, right? Like maybe that's relevant. I don't know. It seems, and it doesn't seem good in Kano. Like this card,
that card's bad.
Seems like another one of those like wizard majestics that you forget exists. Like what's the defense reaction? That majestic.
Sigiled parapets or whatever.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I actually think this card is playable, and I think this is playable in Icelander. I don't know if it's going to be played in every matchup or if it'll be a sideboard card, but I could see this being used. I think it's actually pretty exciting design space too, to be honest. All right.
Okay, I'll leave it with you. Next up, we've got Heavy Artillery. This is a Mechanologist action attack. We're looking at the red one, but it is a cycle. It costs 3, attacks for 6, defense for 3, and it's an Evo upgrade. So this is a keyword. It says the defending hero can't defend with this. Sorry, the defending hero can't defend this with attack action cards with cost less than X, where X is the number of Evos you've equipped. So Brendan was getting all hyped up and G'd up about this card.
It's a boomer trap, bro. This card is a boomer trap.
But also it says attack action cards. I can still defend with non-attack action cards. This feels like a limited card to me. This feels like a through and through like pillar of what we're going to see in limited as a potential like finisher or good chain ender, because I think we're going to have a lot of attack actions in this format. And obviously Evos are important, but in constructed, I mean, it's a popper at red. Like maybe that's relevant, but otherwise...
classic. I mean, you get one every spoiler season where you don't read the card completely, and I did not see attack action cards, so that's my one. But Evo upgrade is exciting to me. I just hope that there is a combo-oriented defensive deck. I want one of those to be back, like a combo-oriented one, not a defensive deck that runs you out of threats, a combo-oriented defensive deck, and I think that Evo upgrade... it gets my juices going, man. That's it.
What about, we didn't talk about this when we talked about Max Nitro, because to be honest, it's not particularly interesting to me, but Nitro Mechanoid, right? The suit, the big mech suit with Max Nitro. Like, surely that is the kind of like the obvious combo deck that's staring in front of everyone, is like, you get to just power out a Nitro Mechanoid very, very quickly because of his hero ability.
Yeah. But is that a combo? Like, that's what I wonder. Is that just something you're just doing in your like mid-range game plan as him because it just makes sense and you can get a lot of value off of it? Honestly, Nitro Mechanoid deleted that card from my my Rolodex of Flesh and Blood cards because dude, Dynasty is a black hole. It's a black hole.
I have cold foil ones.
Well, good for you because I think they're like 500% up or something.
Oh, I hope so because I 500% overpaid for them. So yeah. All right. Last card, Teklo Leveler, that we want to talk about on the pod this week. This is a Mechanologist weapon. It's a gun, 2-hander, attacks for 2. Also, actually, just quickly, the art on Heavy Artillery I really like as well, and I'm glad they use that as a full art because you can see like the wrecked fence, and it gives you this kind of like, I don't know, I like it. Anyway, Teklo Leveler. If you have 1 or more Evos equipped, this gets once per turn action attack for 3. 2 or more, this costs 2 less to activate. 3 or more, this gets go again. 4 or more, this gets +1. So I guess the kind of like best case scenario, you got all your Evos equipped, you're fully mixed up, you attack for 3, it costs 1, has go again.
Okay, let's go median scenario.
You cost 2, it costs 1, and attacks for 2.
It's no go again, so above median. Well, I mean, median is a super subjective.
Median's it's a Teklo pistol.
It's not a real. It's not, but it's not a real term. We have no idea how easy or hard it will be to get Evos out. But looking at other cards, I would guess that it's not easy because some of the Evo upgrades are pretty good. So I think that it is not going to be easy. I think this card is probably bad. Bad. But
know how to.
But if there's that deck, that the defensive Evo upgrade combo deck, it would use this card. It would use this card for sure because you would have, you would have go again on the 1 for 3 weapon. Not bad.
I mean, we know how you can cast Evos. You can get them into play. Like there is ways, right? Like I think, it might not be hard. It's just like how much of these decks are going to suffer against aggro decks, right? That are just like putting on so much pressure, and you're trying to cast these Evos and stuff. That's the thing. But like when you've got time, kind of set up and do these things, the Evos look kind of disgusting with what we've seen so far. So I don't know. And I'm sure there's going to be other ways, maybe a bit of a hint that interact with Evos. So we'll see.
I wouldn't know, actually. I haven't even seen it. I literally have no idea.
But, the potential of like, as you get into the late game kind of grind of having this weapon that's like 1 for 3 go again once you're fully powered up, like that's pretty attractive. Anyway, I think we'll see. I like this kind of design philosophy on a weapon though. Like starts, Flesh and Blood is all about starting high and coming low, right? Like you start with all your equipment full. You start full and you end empty, right? Like you use all your resources, use your best red cards, use your equipment, right? That is the philosophy of Flesh and Blood. And Evos are like complete opposite, right? It is start empty, end full, right? Like build up to having all these Evos, having this crazy Teklo lever that's attacking for 3 damage for 1 resource and go again, for instance. So I like this contrast, and I'm interested to see how it plays out and what it's going to look like in this game. I was so unexcited for Bright Lights, I'll be honest, when it announced. I saw the announcement, went, and then kind of like was like, I'm gonna need to digest this before we record the pod. And that week on the pod, I think I was like kind of like so on it. As the weeks have gone on and we've started to see things about the Evos and some of these weapons and some of the cards, I've gotten a lot more excited about Bright Lights. Particularly, I'm super excited to play Limited for this format. So
I'm excited about Bright Lights because, well, not because it's mech. Only for the reason that from the cards we've seen, it looks like they're willing to push design a little bit. I think we've gone through this phase of Flesh and Blood where design has been very cautious. And I think that it's been more hurtful than beneficial. And I think that we are seeing a shift back to, taking some risks, which is great. I mean, we can ban shit. We have Living Legend. Like, there's so many systems that we can implement. It's just like, I would rather have a new set have an impact. I don't want power creep, but at least have an impact. And we had like a few dud sets in a row where I was like, and without Limited, that's pretty rough. So that's why I'm excited. Because, the first Dash we talked about, Dash Database, that's a crazy ability. Like, that is a crazy ability. The supporting cards might not exist yet, but they could come. They could come in this new set. Do you want to talk about Warband of Bologna? Or
nah, we can leave it till we get to our set review. I think I'm interested to see like what this card will do. It's the legendary we've seen, right? Light warrior equipment head, defense for 2. Has temper, action, 2 resources, destroy it. The next time you attack this turn, you may charge your hero's soul. And if it's a yellow card, you draw a card. Go again. Interesting for potential impacts on Bolton combo, but Bolton just getting a few little pieces here and there. We obviously saw it won a national championship. I don't know. The art's gorgeous on this card, though.
So good.
You're a fan of that,
it's so good. Yeah. Honestly, that was the first thing I thought. I mean, Flesh and Blood or Legend Story is like so vocal and predatory towards combo decks like, like Kano or just like any of these other decks. Like, if Bolton ever becomes a playable deck, combo Bolton, everybody will hate that experience. It's terrible.
Yep.
That's a terrible deck to play against. My least favorite.
All right. To round out the pod this week, we don't have a Commander Cookout, but if you do want to get your questions in for the Commander Cookout, do so. ArsenalPassFab@gmail.com. Drop in YouTube comments below on our community Discord, or you can tweet at us, whatever you want to do. But we do something a little bit different. This past weekend, there was 2 Battle Hardens. There was a Battle Hardened in Italy, and there's a Battle Hardened in the US. Congratulations to those winners. The Battle Hardened in the US was a Team Blitz event, which is one of my favorite formats in Flesh and Blood, and was actually won by a friend of the show, Marco, who has been a long-time listener of Arsenal Pass, and very kindly has done I would like to say it's a reporter in the field, a bit of a recap on the event, and just talked a bit about this kind of Blitz format, this Team Blitz format, again, a format that I think is freaking awesome, and I hope we see more of. So we asked Marco if he could put together a bit of a recap on Portland and the weekend that was, so check that out, and until next time, where to find us, Brendan, quickly, before we go to the studio.
You tried to steal my job. No, I want to say, though, first, both Marco and Charles Dunn, big participators in the Fab Fitness Challenge, avid posters, actually some of the biggest posters. So yeah,
Marco had an amazing time. Yeah, Marco's been doing crazy.
So I'm not saying that it leads to success in card games, but the data's there. I'm just happy those guys are seeing success in the game as well, because they were great to be a part of the, to have in the community. Anyway, where to find us? YouTube version of this at youtube.com/Arsenal Pass, Twitter, Brendan APG, Fien_Dale. Like Hayden said, there's going to be a giveaway for the Taipei Golden Ticket on the Arsenal Pass Twitter page. You just at Arsenal Pass, I believe. Don't quote me on it, but it couldn't be anything else. Just want to shout out all of the patrons. We do have the additional content up there with the deck techs. We talked about Kano and Jermai. I just want to thank you all for supporting. It does help us do what we do week to week and make it all the way up to episode 28. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
All right, throw it over to you, Marco. Take us away.
Hey everyone, this is Marco Marcelli, one of the 3 people who took down the Battle Hardened in Portland over the weekend. Just here to quickly give a recap of the overall event, my team's preparation, and our decision making in terms of who we were going to play, and the overall tournament run for the day. First of all, the tournament was run by a somewhat local store to us, so all 3 of us play up in Seattle, but down in Portland we have a store called Fab Foundry, and I believe they're also launching a physical store, one of the first truly Fab dedicated stores, at least that I have heard of over here in the US at least. And they did a really awesome job organizing it. It was done in the hotel that was really close to the airport, so easy travel for everyone, located right down in the lobby, so incredibly easy to get to. If you were flying in or traveling down, everything was run on time. Couldn't say enough good things about it. My team's philosophy on it wasn't really looking for some kind of team composition or some kind of balanced out group. It really was just finding what we thought were the 3 strongest heroes of the format. It so happened to coincide that they were all heroes that all of us felt pretty comfortable on. So Dylan Mangini was our Kano player. So we consider him like a specialist for Kano and Blitz. So the fact that, he asked like, hey, is Kano still good through Oasis? And we were like, no, he's still really good. And he was like, okay, that's great. That's all I need to hear. Ryan Biggs, our chain player, same philosophy, has delved into Rune Blades in the past, has done really well with Rune Blades. And so the fact that chain is undoubtedly probably the best deck in the format is all we needed to hear. So that only left me. The problem is that we identified 2 clear best heroes for the format in the form of Kano and Chain. We had a little bit of issue trying to figure out what the 3rd best hero would be. And I don't really think there's an exact answer, at least for us. We went between Dash, Rhinar, Kasai, but we did, and also Prism as well. Both versions of Prism, I think, arguably probably could have been the answer, but I defaulted a little bit to a comfort pick with Dash. And we also did kind of think about, on average, we assume that like most high-level teams are probably going to have a Kano and a Chain in every single table. So finding a hero that felt comfortable into both, I think, felt like the best answer for the 3rd hero. So for the 2 heroes, you just play the best deck. The 3rd one, not having a clear, distinct answer, meant that you wanted something that was relatively okay into the 2 best decks. Dash felt really good into Kano, and Chain felt manageable. Going 2nd gave you a big advantage. And also, personally, for my list, we ended up teching for a fatigue plan in the sideboard going 1st. We had a good record for the day. We actually ended up doing pretty well. I think both Dylan and Ryan ended up with 8 wins at the end of the tournament. I think I had 7, which makes sense being a slightly weaker hero, also having to deal with specific like fatigue strategies. Like for anyone who watched the stream, seeing top 4, playing into a full fatigue Bravo is a little bit difficult for the deck, but we expected that because Dash did feel like the weakest of the 3, despite still being quite strong. Just like quick highlights from the tournaments. I remember Dylan round 1 played against a fatigue Yoji that we repaired into in top 4. So I played the Bravo from that team and I won that game, lost in top 4, but the team won in top 4. So we progressed to the finals. But in the first game, Dylan pitch stacked a Kano hand at the end of the game that I believe did 60 damage. So that was really cool. On the flip side of it, in top 4, I believe he killed the Yoji on turn 2. So it was both ends of the spectrum, playing every single card from deck, comboing out, and then just ripping off the top at the end. Dylan ran pretty hot for the day, really experienced Kano player. I think another notable moment was we put against Michael Fang, Lucas Oswald, and Brody Spurlock, their team. And I think he, unless I'm misunderstanding, killed Michael Fang as Briar before Michael Fang ever played an attack. So those are some pretty cool highlights. So Kano is still really good in Blitz, despite Oasis. So don't worry, Brendan. It's okay. Dylan definitely got the handful of the really cool flashy wins from the tournament. We all had really pivotal wins when we needed them. So there were times where I lost, I needed my teammates to win out. They were able to do it. There were times where it came down to me and I was able to get there. We were all really happy with each other's performances. None of us felt like we were lagging behind, and we all felt like we were really on top of it throughout the entire day, even up until the very end, still playing really disciplined, really clean. I feel like the only mistakes that we may have made were probably from a macro decision standpoint. So sideboarding, understanding of the matchup going into it. So specifically, like Rune Gate Chain was there. We were a bit underprepared for it. Like I played against it, I think twice in Swiss, and both times I learned new things about it, more things than I did when we were preparing. So there's always more stuff to learn. I think the format will probably evolve a little bit more, mostly just seeing what the chain lists end up like. But yeah, that was it for us. So obviously couldn't be more happy with the performance. Pankaj also taking down the PTI the next day, so really putting Seattle on the map, despite it being in Portland. But that just goes to show the Pacific Northwest has definitely got it on lock. Would be really cool to see more events out on the West Coast if that's ever possible. You can find me at YouTube at the Teklo Foundry. I think by the time that Arsenal Pass has this video, I'll have a deck tech for my dash list from the event, and then I'll also be able to link both my teammates' lists as well for anyone who wants to see those. I don't think my team has anything else to shout out. They're just locals to the area that really enjoy the game and like to play competitively. Thank you for having me on.